Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Beginner's Java. This is lesson numero 5. And today we're going to be talking about public static void main string args. So we're going to be talking about a Java 10 feature here. And the reason I left this until lesson number 5 is because until Java 10, this was not a feature. Java added it to be like other languages, and it's what's called dynamic typing. So there's reasons why you would use dynamic typing, and we'll kind of go over what it is. So essentially, what strong typing is, which is the opposite of dynamic typing, or dynamic typing is also called soft typing. So soft typing, or we'll start with hard typing. So everything that we've gone over so far is hard typing. That's when we declare a type for our variable. And that type has limitations. And so that means int can only store integers without, and we'll just throw in EG at the beginning there. And I'm going to have to correct that because I forgot the second period. Without decimals. Doesn't allow numbers, for example. So, okay, cool. That's an example of hard typing. Now, for whatever stupid reason, and I really think it's because other languages like JavaScript have gained so much ground, and they're soft-type languages. In Java 10, they made soft typing a thing. And soft typing is when you declare a variable, you don't necessarily know what type it's going to be. And the way that you do this is you just say var my variable. And you can leave it blank like that. So if we actually uncomment that line, it's going to yell at me because because I didn't initialize it. So you actually can't leave it blank. So if I say 1, cool, great. But this actually comes really in handy when you get a bit further into Java. But my suggestion, and it's a little bit of a ludicrous suggestion, is to never ever use this. And so this is one of the biggest changes of Java 10. And the reason I'm advocating not using this is because hard typing ensures that, 1, you're not pushing code that you're not sure of / don't know what it does into production. So with var, so later on we'll make our own methods which will return a variety of different things. Well, let's say I say my method and I just pass in some numbers like that. I don't know what's coming back to my variable. Now, my method may very well return a number. But what if I do something a little different, right? What if I reach out to a web server and I'm expecting a set of numbers and I try to call parseInt, but I get back a string? I'm going to get an error, and then what's going to be in my variable? And hopefully, you know, when I have all my error handling figured out and all that, it will handle that. But again, there's too many things you run into. And while I love generics and I think that they're a great thing to use in moderation, I just don't see the need for soft typing. and similarly, just to show you guys that we can do whatever, my words can be a string as well. And so the other catch here is if we do my words dot, you'll notice that it realizes that it's not necessarily a string. So I can call toString on it to make it a string. And so I have a lot of these other functions here because Java doesn't really know what it is. So again, if you do know what type you need, use that type. And lastly, it's a nightmare to figure out what someone planned to use that variable for. And granted, you'll try to name your variables so that they don't suck, but so yeah, I wanted to cover this just because it is something that you may run into. If you see somebody using var a lot, they probably don't really know what they're doing, and you should hopefully not be the guy who has to code after them, guy or girl who has to code after them. So I'm going to leave this one here. I'm going to leave this one really, really simple, and if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to go into this. But honestly, I think that this one's so short and simple that it doesn't need much more than this. So next lesson, we're going to start learning about if statements. That's where we're going to, I don't know, that's when coding really kind of comes alive. So hopefully you guys have toughed it out. I know it's been about an hour so far, but we needed to get a really good, strong foundation before we move past this stuff. So what I would recommend to you, actually, let me, okay, I'll add the files for the commit, but I'm not going to commit yet. I'm going to add in a suggested homework here. Oh, okay, I guess so success, so homework, oh my god, if I could type, homework, suggestion, so actually, how did I, sometimes I'm a real mutt. Okay, so, alright. I actually have something else to teach you guys, which somehow I've forgotten to teach you this whole time, and I really don't know how I've gone about doing that. Okay, so in Java, and in every programming language, the only thing we do is not output. Now, granted, the vast majority of the time when you're coding professionally, you actually don't take a lot of user input through the method that I'm about to teach you. I'm actually going to put like a dividing line between these two, just because that's so different from what we're about to talk about. So one of the things that we need to talk about is how to take input from the user. And the way that we do that is there's a part of the Java language called scanner, and it's part of Java util. And you'll see up here, when I did that, I just typed scanner, and I hit enter, and it added this import up here. You'll need this import to do what we're about to do. So I'll just call this scanner scan equals new scanner, and in here you type system.in. And so what this means is we're creating a new scanner object. Again, that doesn't mean a whole lot to you yet. Don't worry too much about the nuances there. But here's what we can do. So let's say we take an integer, and we say something like int a equals, and we can say scan.nextInt. And so let's add a line before this, system.out.println, and we'll say enter a number. And then real quick after that, we'll just do system.out.println, and we'll go ahead and say you entered plus A. All right, cool. So we give this a run, and when we give it a run, it's going to come up and say enter a number. That's not related to what we're doing. So if I say 5, it'll output 5. So that's kind of how we can start taking input from a user. And now the spot where that gets really kind of iffy, going back to what we were talking about earlier, is if I were to change this to var, and then I was to say something like a plus, actually, let's, no, that's actually, well, I'll get into that sort of thing later. Let's instead focus on this. So with scanner, if we want to build out a double, we can do the same thing. So double B equals scan.next double. And it's the same thing, right? And there's one of these for each type, right? So you can do scan.next. And there's some ones I haven't covered here, right? There's big decimal, big integer, which again, I didn't cover. There's byte, which I didn't cover. Float, I touched on. It's the same thing as double for the most part. It takes up a little bit more memory, but it's still so small it doesn't matter. Long and short, and those are both numbers. The only other one that you'll find yourself using a lot is next line. And so what that is how we take in strings. So if I take in a next line, and so we'll comment this stuff out. So if I say system.out.println, enter as many words as you want, followed by the enter key. So if we throw in something like that, we can then say system.out.println str. And that's all we have to do. So we'll give this a run, and we'll say for score and 7 years ago, ... and as you can see, it's now stored in a variable for us. Okay, so now that I've taught you that, here's what I want you to do. And it's not a very hard homework. So once again, we'll kind of just make a separating line here to just kind of show we're done talking about that. And we'll say suggested homework. Create a program that allows a user to input some numbers representing a bank account. Once the user has entered their current balance and their rate of interest, tell them how much money they will have in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, and 10 years. And that should be a nice little problem for you guys. So I'm going to leave it at this. I'll actually solve that problem on the Patreon stream, just because I've been sort of struggling to figure out what to do over there and kind of walk through that logic. It's not tremendously hard if you know the compounding. And so it's up to you if you want to do compounding interest. Remember math.pow that we looked at earlier, and or simple interest. So compounding interest just means that at the end of year 1, say we start with 10,000, at the end of year 1 we have 11,000. So you then take 11,000 as your base, and there's a way to do that with math.pow. Whereas if you use simple interest, you don't have to worry about that sort of thing. So all right, I'm going to leave it here. Sorry, I went a little bit over because I forgot to teach you guys that. That was my bad. Somehow during the process of teaching you guys input and output, I forgot to teach you input. So lesson 5 source code. And we'll commit and push that to GitHub, and you guys are all set. Awesome. And also for Patreon members, I'm going to go over sort of what GitHub is and why we want to use it. Again, this is probably something you can Google, but I want to tie it in and have you guys get everything all in one place. So with that said, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share. Peace.